Hey, Tommy from The Run Testers. In this video, we're talking about marathon shoe rotations. So we're going to be picking the shoes that would be our top choices for running a marathon. So that includes easy day shoes, daily shoes, and the shoes that we'd actually use for race day. This video is also part of the podcast, so if you're planning on listening to the podcast, don't watch this video. Right, let's dive in and see what we all had to say. Alright guys, it is coming up to the end of January. A lot of people are preparing for marathons coming up in March and April. So this is probably a good time to start talking about what shoes we would pick up for that marathon training block. So we're not just talking about the race shoes that you're going to pick for the big day, but shoes that you're going to use over the next 3 months. We've done this a few times. We've talked about rotations. But we've had a lot of new shoes in since the last time we've done that. So let's start with Mike. Do you want to start? If you were to pick your rotation, what would be your easy day shoe for marathon training? I know you're not training for a marathon, but if you were,
well, I still am working to a rotation as if I would be doing a marathon. So I'd still be kind of utilising my shoes in that way. So in terms of the easy shoes that I'm using, or I would go to at the moment, is the Skyward X, Hoka Skyward X, and I am actually using the New Balance 1080 V13, not the V14. I much prefer the comfort side of things with those shoes. Gives me enough in terms of protection. I know that, those are going to be very stable for me, shoes personally. And I know comfort's going to be the priority for me. So those are shoes that I would kind of be grabbing. And actually, Super Blast 2 would be in there as well. I think, in terms of me, particularly picking up my mileage and having a shoe that's very easy to do that with. That's a shoe that I found, that I've been grabbing the most for those types of runs and like getting more kind of time on my feet. So those are the kind of ones that I've been turning to with a view, that, if I was doing a marathon, those are the shoes I'd still be using anyway. So,
okay, you got one pick. What's your easy day shoe?
At the moment, a 1080 V13 is the one I still grab for. I know it's not the newest version, but it's just the one that I love the weight of it. I love the way it feels. I love the comfort side of things. I think the 1080 V14 is a good shoe. It's just worked a little bit better for me, and I know what I'm going to get from that shoe when I go out on it.
Yeah. And what sort of distance would you go up to in the 1080 V13?
To be honest, where I'm at, I wouldn't go kind of, my longest runs, I think like 10, 11, 12 miles, I feel absolutely fine running in that shoe. And that's kind of where I'm at the moment. So for me, it's perfectly fine. I think the biggest difference for me, the 1080 V14, is I'd probably feel more comfortable going further than that in that shoe. But I think for me, in terms of where I'm at and where my kind of long runs are at the moment, it's absolutely fine. So.
Okay. Nick. Easy day shoe. What you get one pick. You can talk through some of this, but what's your one pick for people doing a marathon in this year for easy day shoes at the moment?
People or for me?
Well, what are you going to pick? Based on your running?
I basically I don't really have like a dedicated easy day shoe anymore. I just think they've got so good, the versatile shoes, that I'd probably be using those for easy runs and then other runs as well. So I think if I was going to recommend go and get one easy day shoe for people, I really rate the Saucony Hurricane 24. I think it's a very impressive shoe all round. But I think probably my easy day runs, that kind of thing, I wouldn't use a shoe as big as that. I just don't tend to use those kind of shoes that much. When it comes to picking my day shoes, I'd probably be looking at something like the Super Blast or the Hoka Max 6 kind of thing. Those are shoes that I just really like using a lot for that kind of run. Just, the easy runs here and there. And then if I'm doing anything like if I was doing lots of long, easy runs, I would get something like the Hurricane, something like that. But none of my long runs are ever just always easy. There's always a progression element to them. So I do prefer picking up something that's got a bit more versatility myself. Glycerin Max would be another one very much up there. I was just looking at kind of an actual general easy day shoe for marathon training. I think it's one of the best marathon training shoes out there with that nice rocker, nice stiff ride. But yeah, it's hard to say what I'd pick. I don't want to pick the Super Blast, but if I'm actually talking about the rotation I'd have for marathon training, a dream rotation, the Super Blast would be the shoe I'd be picking out for all those kind of runs.
Well, I'm the opposite to you. Most of my runs are easy runs. I'm training for marathons at the moment. So I would. We've had quite a few new shoes in that that you would probably put into that category of easy day long run shoes. Things like the Gel Nimbus 27, the Brooks Glycerin 22. But neither of those has really sparked my interest. I've not really enjoyed those very much. Definitely not for long runs. So I think I would. I'm obviously going to say the More V5 because I love that shoe. Comfort at a nice, comfortable pace. That's what I get out of the More V5. But I would say, stuff like the Mizuno Neo Vista, which is, an all-rounder shoe you can use for other stuff. I would use it for easy runs as well.
Yeah, there are lots of plated shoes I would. I probably just wouldn't pick a plated shoe for easy runs. Like, again, if it was, Nike Zoom Fly 6 is an incredibly comfortable shoe, just relaxed, easy runs. And again, it does that job really well, but probably I'd like to have not a plate-free shoe when it comes to just pure easy stuff.
Yeah, the Hurricane's a very good choice because you tick off a lot of different people for that, and you've got no concerns about stability or anything. It just
it's just one of those shoes that it is just a big block of comfort that actually has a bit more in it than most shoes in that category I found anyway.
Okay, let's do training shoes. Mike, you got one shoe. What are you going for? What are you suggesting is the shoe that would you'd use for all of your faster sessions if you're training for a marathon?
I think for me and what I've kind of used, and I think will probably work for a lot of people, and it's one that I kind of picked out in my kind of favourites from last year is the Rebel V4, the New Balance Rebel V4 for me. That's the one that I've been back out in when I've wanted to do some slightly more up tempo sessions. I think it just works very well. I think I like the fact it has the elements of the upper of the SC Elite there. So from a kind of fit point of view, it feels really great for me. And I think for me that is a shoe that I think will work for a lot of people first and foremost. And I think the experience of using that for kind of more up tempo sessions, I think that's a great shoe, and I think that'll work for a lot of different people.
Okay. Any others that people might want to look at?
I mean, you've got to put the Mac in there as well. I think the Mac X2 as well. Those are still very solid shoes in that category. Price-wise, value-wise, I think you're getting a lot out of those shoes as well. The Superlast 2 would be in there as well because it could do a lot of that as well. So it's more expensive, very hard to get hold of. But if you could get it, that would be a shoe that could work for that. Maybe not your very fastest stuff, but I think if you were looking for an all-in-one shoe to do some of that, then that would be another shoe to look at, I think.
Yeah,
go on then, Nick. This is going to be quite different for you again, I imagine.
So this is again, I'm gonna push, I'm gonna annoy people here, but I'll have my pick again. I've got access to loads of shoes here, so I'm gonna be honest and say the one that I do use the most marathon training, but then I'll give some probably more sensible picks. But I do think the Hoka Cielo X1 is the best marathon training shoe ever made, probably.
Wow.
I've done my last year, marathons. Every time I've got a really big, hard, long run, that's the shoe I pull on. It's fast, really fast. It's a racing shoe. It's very, very fast, but it is I think a bit more stable and comfortable and protective than some of the the racing shoes. You always bounce back really well the next day, and the ride's just unbelievable. It's just so nice to run in that shoe a lot. And so I've done I think about 360 kilometers in that shoe now. Just all in marathon training. The odd race here and there, but it's just the dream marathon training shoe. That session, we talked about it separately to this in the audio part of the podcast, but essentially I did a long session at the track yesterday, 10 times 1K, 10 times 400. I did that in the Cielo at the back end of last year, and it was a dream in that. So I do think that's amazing, but it's obviously very expensive. It's a carbon plate racing shoe. People don't want to train in that all the time. There are some amazing, obviously, plated super trainers out there. I think for marathon training in particular, I think Nike Zoom Fly 6 might just edge out the Mac X2 and the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4, which I think are slightly faster shoes, but Zoom Fly is so comfortable, so good for those marathon training sessions where you're rarely doing flat out reps. You're doing maybe a lot of reps with shorter recovery, and that's the kind of the thing it really comes into its own. And then plate free, the shoe I've been using a lot recently is the Adidas Adizero Evo SL, which is an incredible shoe, great value. The opposite to the Hoka Cielo. It's an unplated, low stack, simple shoe that's less than half the price, and pretty much as good. It's an amazing shoe, just maybe hasn't quite got the protection you get for long runs from the Cielo, but that's an amazing shoe as well. But honestly, like I say, the proof's in the mileage. I've got access to every shoe here, but I've done more miles in the Cielo than I've done in any shoe probably ever, except for the original Saucony Endorphin Speed 4.
Yeah, but I suppose the training that you're doing, you're doing long runs that have quite a lot of fast sections in. Like the whole long run might be a fast run for you.
Yeah, and then I'm doing a lot of doubles, so you want to do that for the first. The doubles, they're threshold doubles usually, so the pace isn't crazy, but you got to recover for the next one. So I'll put on the Cielo because I know that I rebound better in that shoe, and then I'm good again for the next. And then I might use the Adidas Evo SL for the afternoon run, where it's less about quick recovery, more about enjoying the run at that time. And anyway, they're both really enjoyable shoes, just at very different ends of the spectrum. I think those are two standout options for sure. With something like the Zoom Fly splitting the difference in the middle as a slightly more realistic plated shoe maybe than the Cielo. Although you might be able to find it. I mean, the new one's coming out soon, and there might be a better racing shoe, but it's hard to imagine a better fast training shoe than Cielo X1, even though that's not what it's designed to do.
Well, I destroyed my Cielo X1 after 40k. So
it's incredible. I just don't know how you do these things.
I was so upset. I like you. I love that shoe, and I wish I'd used it for Valencia Marathon. I think for me, it is more of a marathon shoe than a training shoe. But yeah, I think I definitely would put it in a training shoe. But I do love that shoe. Got to stick some shoe goo on it in a bit, see if I can.
I'm excited building this rotation. I have to say, I think at the moment I've got a couple of shoes well over 200 quid. So if my racing shoe might have been my cheapest shoe.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to go. Training shoes is a tricky one. Most of my training is when I do marathon training. I'm not doing ridiculously long, fast runs. Most of my long runs are relatively slow. They will have some faster sections in, but I'm less bothered about them being really fast. What I'm bothered about is consistent pace and still a bit of comfort. So that's where the Superblast 2 comes in for that. But still, shoes like the Mizuno Mizuno Neo Vista. That's the sort of shoe that I think that would work really well for me, because it gives you the energy to go out and maintain a pretty good pace. I'm not going, full pelt in when I'm going to do those marathon training sessions, but I still want a shoe that's going to help me go a bit faster. So I definitely go for something like the Neo Vista. Even the Balos, which I haven't picked up for a while actually, that's a good one for me for those sorts of runs as well.
Yeah.
But I suppose the tricky thing, if you're talking about your training shoe for a marathon, some people do. Most of my speed stuff in a marathon training block, it tends to be the interval type stuff, the shorter stuff, whereas the longer runs are actually not really that fast.
Oh, really?
So I need a shoe that's going to be, pretty good at those as well if I'm picking one training shoe. And I think shoes like the Neo Vista are probably a little bit better for me than the Balos and the Superblast 2 for those shorter, faster sections.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'll go. If I've got one pick, sadly I'm still going to go for the Superblast 2.
All right.
just because it just does a lot of stuff. But yeah, okay, let's go into the big one then, the race shoes. Mike.
So we spent a lot of time talking about the Cielo X1, and this is probably where I would be turning to for it. I think of all the shoes that I've used at my kind of marathon pace in my long runs last year, this is the shoe that I enjoyed the most. It's fun, it's lively, but it's still very stable. And I think a bit like Nick has said it, I mean, I don't feel like my legs are wrecked after using this shoe, and I feel like it's the ideal marathon shoe. The laces are terrible, we know that. We've all kind of recognise it.
I didn't know this until I raced at the weekend. 3 times I had to stop and do my laces up.
Oh, Tom, they fixed it in later versions. The ones that they sell now don't come with those laces.
Yeah. So for me, that would probably be, when I turn to when the new one comes out, hopefully, if I can get hold of that, that's probably the one that I'd be going for. But I think there's some other really strong ones that I've really enjoyed. I've actually been back out and doing some running back at the SC Elite V4, and I think for a lot of people that will be a shoe that would work very well for people. I think it's a very accessible shoe, a very stable shoe, still has enough about it, I think, to be a good shoe over that marathon distance, and I think that can work for a lot of people. And then the Deviate Nitro, the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 3 is a fantastic shoe, costs less than most of those marathon shoes that we're probably going to talk about, and it's fantastic. I love that shoe. It's an added bonus that it's cheaper than the competition, and from a midsole point of view, outsole, the fit of it, it's a fantastic shoe, and I think that's going to serve a lot of people who want a really nice, fast marathon shoe.
Yeah, I reckon that the Puma, that's actually another shoe I've used a load lately. I think it's basically a winter training essential at this point. That having a shoe with Puma grip for me, and that shoe in particular has just been so important for it was 1 or sub-0 for about a week and a half here, wasn't it? So I had to do 2 or 3, hard workouts on the track, double days on icy roads and stuff like that, and just everything was in the Puma because it was, I did a progression 30k in it just because it was the only shoe I knew would be gripping reliably the whole way while still being super quick. So, yeah, that's another one I stick in my trainer section as well as racing.
Okay, so Nick, you're actually doing a marathon pretty soon. So, what are you going to go? What out of the picks at the moment are you going to go for?
Well, my favourite racing shoe last year was the Asics Meta Speed Sky Paris. I have to use that shoe anyway in Seville because Asics sorted me the place very kindly when I'm paying my way, but I couldn't get a spot, so because they're a sponsor. So I am using the Asics, but I think given what happened last year, I used it for my PBs over marathon and half marathon. It's the shoe I'd be using anyway until something new comes and knocks it off its perch. If something does, I reckon at this point, we're splitting hairs actually between most of these complex shoes. It's the one that feels the best for you. I know some people who just much prefer the feel of something like an Alpha Fly, which is a lot squidgier than the Meta Speed Sky Paris, and would go for that. And I think that's probably the other one I think is right up there in terms of performance. And then the Puma is incredibly good as well. The On the Cloudboom Strike LS is very, very good. But the Asics, again, that's another shoe I've got almost 300k on. One of them, I've got a fresher one for the marathon. And yeah, I think you can't beat it. The combination of lightness and bounce and speed and everything. I know you're not such a big fan, Tom, after Valencia, but yeah, that's my marathon shoe for sure.
Yeah, it's tricky with some of those like Valencia. If I was a bit fitter, I might have liked it, but no, I think I definitely feel a big difference between something like the CeeLo X1 and the Metaspeed Sky Paris, and I much prefer the ride of the CeeLo X1. I like the bigger base on it, and just a bit more to that foam for me. I need a little bit more softness, but I think for me. I keep banging about the Hoka CeeLo X1. Obviously, there's a new version coming out soon, which I hopefully can get hold of, because that might, if that's good, I think it's probably going to toss up between that, the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 3, and maybe the Saucony Endorphin Elite 2. Once we've had a chance to test them, but I can't think of it. Yeah, apart from the Hoka CeeLo X1, and I haven't had many good complex shoes over the past 12 months that I've really been impressed with, apart from the Puma and the CeeLo X1.
At London, I've got quite a few I'd love to do the marathon in. So we're going hard at London. It's 2 months after Seville. I've got a chance to bounce back, and I want to use something not the Asics, because I've used them for 2 hard marathons then. So the CeeLo X, it's the stupidest name, the CeeLo X1 2.0 is right up. It'd be interesting, basically, because I think it is a lot lighter, and it seems a bit more aggressive and racy, and it's whether they still retain that kind of magical bounce whilst doing all those things would be very interesting. But that's the one that's probably top of my mind that I want to use at London at the moment. I would love to use the Puma, but they're just a bit long for me, and it's fine for training. But on a race day, I wouldn't want to have a shoe that I think I had a bit too much room in. They just get into my head. So I think at the moment, if the CeeLo X1 2.0 lives up to that, but I'd also just like to go and do a marathon in the Alpha Fly 3, because I do think it's my second favourite kind of marathon racing shoe. I just haven't run a marathon in it yet, and I've run marathons in all the Alpha Flies and every Vaporfly to date. So I'd like to keep that track record going.
You're not going to take out a loan and get the Pro Evos?
I'm not going to get the Pro Evos. I have problems with a shoe that's so inaccessible. So although, at some point they'll all be like that, I fear, and I don't think that's the way to go.
There were many times in Dubai, because Dubai they have every shoe available. They had every size of the Pro Evos. I think it's because even though there's quite a lot of runners around there, it's not the same as like the US and the UK. There's not loads of people buying the latest running shoes, so they just massively stock up, and then they've got loads of them, and they're not getting sold out. But yeah, I was so close to buying them, and then I'm quite glad I didn't, because after what happened with the Hoka CeeLo X1, if I ripped the back off of that, and they've got an even lighter peppering of rubber on the outsole, so that I definitely shed a tear if I.
You can get them here if you want. They're on sports shoes, I think. They're there, sitting there now.
Yeah,
we should say actually, none of us have mentioned the Adios Pro 4s. None of us have tested it.
Oh yeah,
yes,
it's very tricky to get samples out of it. So we haven't managed it. Kieran's tested it. I think he likes it, apart from the fact it ripped his toes off, but his toenails off. But it does sound like a very good shoe by all accounts. But it's very hard for me, as someone who takes this very seriously, too seriously, and fast enough to want the faster shoe, to buy a second tier shoe from a brand, or use a second tier shoe from a brand. So, yes. I don't like that idea, but I think probably within a few years that will be the case with every brand. Potentially they'll all have some kind of elite only shoe.
And then we're
Okay.
doomed.
Hopefully not.
Okay. Lastly, let's just if there are any listeners planning to do a marathon coming up and they only want to buy one shoe and they're not planning on building a rotation, maybe it's the first time they've done a marathon, they don't want to go crazy. What shoe would you pick, Mike?
Ooh. I don't want to say Superblast because it's just so difficult to get hold of. I mean, that's probably the one that I would say, but it's, you know, it's not accessible for a lot of people. So I think, you know, for something to get you comfortably through that distance, the Glycerin Max, I think Brooks's shoes in general in that range from a comfort point of view, you know, tick a lot of boxes. So I think maybe that would be a good one. There'd be enough in the ride, I think, for a lot of people to. So if you were doing your first, then that would be a very kind of safe bet, I think. So that's probably one that I would probably consider. I think of the ones that I think are going to work for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. What about if it's somebody who had been training for marathons in the past, does like running, but only wants to buy one pair of shoe for the whole training block?
I mean, I think if you could afford the Puma, I think the Puma could handle some training. I think there's enough there to handle some training and also give you enough on race day and to make sure you have a good day in that shoe. So I think that would probably be one. And it is still expensive, but it is cheaper than the alternatives. And I think it's not a lesser shoe because of that.
Go on then, Nick.
One shoe for everything, for beginners and then maybe intermediates.
Yeah.
Beginners, Brooks Glycerin Max is definitely one that came to mind for me. It's expensive. I basically would go and try on the Glycerin Max, the Glycerin 22 from Brooks, or the Asics Gel Nimbus, and just basically see if you like the lower drop rocker of the Max, or if you prefer the higher drop of something like the Nimbus or the Glycerin 22, and then pick between them based on that. But the Glycerin Max is definitely a good shout. And then if you're someone who is going to do a bit more speed work and wants to run fast on the day, but needs one shoe for everything, I'd get the Nike Zoom Fly 6, I think. It's really comfortable, but pretty fast.
Okay, I'm going to surprise you here. I'm going to say Evo SL.
Oh,
Evo SL is good. I just don't think it was one I'd pick for a fairly new runner.
I did think that. I think it's probably a little bit lack of stability if you used to running in a more stable shoe. But I'm really enjoying that shoe for easy runs, and I'm mainly doing easy runs at the moment.
You're like similar weight to me though, so that's my thing. I think if you're a slightly heavier runner, you might want something with a bit more stack and kind of width and support. Like, it's an amazing shoe. That's one shoe I consider for myself. I had to pick one shoe for everything for the whole marathon block, but I'd probably position that more against like the Zoom Fly than against something like if it's your first marathon.
I would go for something like the Superblast 2, but I think the Superblast 2 tends to be the shoe that a rotation buyer would buy. It's not the shoe that you just buy one, like that's your only shoe, because if you're only going to buy one shoe, you're not going to buy a £200 shoe. You might as well,
That's probably the Glycerin as well, Glycerin Max as well, isn't it? You're only going to buy one shoe, but I think that is proving. Well, it's 180, isn't it? Yeah. It's tricky. There's a lot of good options. Evo SL is definitely a good option.
Yeah. Okay. I think that'll do us for marathon shoes. Let's see if we actually end up using all of these over the next.
Well, we've got our full roundup coming, haven't we? Where we pick a. So obviously this. I'm not telling. Don't do what I did. Don't go and go Super Blast, Hocus Yellow X1, Mesby Scupper. That's an insane rotation. That is what I'm kind of using, but I would not say to people go and do that. And in the video coming up, we'll actually have the slightly more journalistic picks where we actually think about this is just pure insight into the lunacy of the lives we have, the shoes we have. But
yours, but me and Mike's are pretty comfortable.
Still whacking the Super Blast thing constantly. That's still
We may have to ban that from some
casually dropping the Super Blast. Forget Super Blast, why not? But so we've got a video where we'll take into account the ideas of slightly more normal approach. Although you can be sure we'll be recommending the Super Blast in that video.
Loads in Dubai.
Loads of them, all in teal.
In teal as well. Need that teal Super Blast, man.
Right, catch you guys later.
Yeah, see you later.
Right. That's it from us on this video. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click that little bell. And if you go into the caption below, you can find a link to our podcast, which comes out a couple of times each month. And if you listen to this version of the podcast, you get about 20 minutes more of us talking about new shoes and training and things like that. Thanks a lot for watching. Catch you next time.